Veg Fest. Come on, let's get a hell yeah. Can I get a bean sprout? Ain't no. Can I get a kale yeah? Kale yeah. Okay, all right, we good. My name is Stephen Marcus Reller. I'm going to introduce the next presenter up here, Robert Cheeke. Bodybuilder, influencer. Robert grew up on a farm in Corvallis, is that correct? Yeah, Corvallis, Oregon, where he adopted the vegan lifestyle in 1995. Damn, it wasn't even nothing out back then. 1990, you was eating straight grass back then. It was 1995 at the age of 15, weighing just 120. Buck 20, okay, cool. Today he's an author of books, Vegan Bodybuilding, Fitness, Shredded, Plant-Based Muscle, the New York Times bestseller, The Plant-Based Athlete, and his latest, The Impactful Vegan, released in 2024. He is often referred to as the godfather of vegan bodybuilding, growing the industry from infancy in 2002, where it is today. As a natural bodybuilding champion, Robert is considered one of the Veg News magazine most influential vegan athletes. He tours around the world, sharing his story of transformation from skinny farm kid to champion vegan bodybuilder. Robert is a founder of Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness and veganbodybuilding.com. He's a regular contributor to Forks Over Knives, the Center of Nutrition and Studies, Plant Power Athlete, Vegan Strong, and No Meat Athlete. He is a former multi-sport athlete and has followed plant-based diet for more than 29 years. There's nothing that this man cannot do. Give a round of applause for Robert Cheeke.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. It is so great to be back. I'm not used to standing behind this thing, so I'm probably going to move around. Is that okay with you guys? Is that okay with the camera? Is that okay? I move around a lot. This is how I get my steps in. So I'll encourage all of you to do the same. So a lot of people would say, Robert, this is your first time speaking at Veg Fest in San Francisco? It's actually, I think it's like my 7th time here. It's just my first time in the last 12 years, so it's been a little while. So I am super thrilled to be back. This is a very special year for me, as you just heard from the wonderful introduction, that my 30th vegan anniversary is coming up next month on December 8th, and I'm super excited about it because, from my view, committing to anything for 30 years, especially at my age 45, is a challenge to do, or it means it comes from a deep place of commitment and meaning, and it's the most meaningful milestone in my life thus far, just on the cusp of 30 years of vegan living, especially because it started for me as a kid growing up on the farm and wanting to reduce animal suffering, and I became vegan for the animals. And so, it's kind of apropos, as he said with his introduction, one of my slogans is, anything you can do, I can do vegan. Because I have no business being here, right? I'm this champion vegan bodybuilder, New York Times bestselling author. I've traveled to 5 continents, speaking, all this stuff. But I barely weighed 100 pounds when I started. I was a small kid. I weighed 89 pounds in 8th grade. Before going to high school, I have no business being this godfather of vegan bodybuilding. But here I am. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit today, but also want to just kind of set the tone by getting a gauge of the audience here as well. So we're going to talk about building your body on a plant-based diet. Is there anyone here who, at any time in your life, has ever had a fitness goal and maybe New Year's resolution, fitness related? Okay, and the rest of you are liars. That's okay. Getting to know each other, San Francisco. All right, anyone here maybe perhaps ever said or heard someone say, I tried being vegan, but it didn't work for me? Anybody? Okay, half of you, again, the rest of you are liars, and that's okay. Burn a few extra calories, get a hand up. The reality is, that's something that's come into many of our lives, is that we've had this goal, some sort of fitness-related goal, and yet many of those are left unmet and unachieved, and there's reasons for that. Might as well just start off the bat with that. Why not? Since we're talking about it. Since we already established there's quite a few people here, if not everybody, who's had some fitness goal at some point in your life. It's the most popular New Year's resolution: fat loss, weight loss, fitness. So clearly it applies to pretty much everyone here. That means, if you've had this as a goal, that means that you know precisely, based on your gender, age, height, weight, and very importantly, activity level, exactly how many calories you expend per day, 4-digit number. You've all got that number, okay? Again, based on these factors, gender, age, height, weight, and very importantly, activity level. That's based on metabolic rate plus your activity. So you all have that number. Don't shout it all at once. You also must know, fundamentally, and this is, fundamentally you must know, if you have a fitness goal, precisely how many calories you consume per day. We already determined that you know how many you expend per day based on your activity level and height and weight and all that stuff. You also must know how many you consume per day. Very likely, again, a 4-digit number. And you know what that relationship is in that ratio as far as surplus or deficit or maintenance. Everyone has that? Want to share? Okay. Here's what we found. We as in, data. What we have found is that most people do have a fitness goal. You can say wellness goal, but largely a fitness-related goal. But we also know that most people have the same New Year's resolution for 10 consecutive years before deciding maybe it's not for me. You've seen this. That New Year's resolutions end 2.5 weeks into January, right? I got to wait 11.5 months and try again for another decade. And then realize maybe it's not going to work. And you know why that is? There's a few reasons why, but this one's going to sound a little bit crazy, perhaps. I learned this from a New York Times bestselling psychology author, host of one of the most popular podcasts in the entire world. Of course, I'm talking about Shankar Vedantam from the Hidden Brain podcast. I'm sure a lot of fans in the room. He says something that I think is profoundly true for many of us, that the version of you who says, I want to achieve this in the new year, is not the version of you that has to actually do it. Psychologically, you're different people. You're hyped up right now. You're listening to this, fairly attractive blonde guy with white in his beard, semi-fit, overly charismatic. Thank you. God, getting you fired up that you can do this. And I'm going to give you all the tools in order to achieve your health and fitness goals. I've done it for 30 years. From champion bodybuilder, champion runner. You might get fired up, maybe excited. You might go home and say, I'm going to do this year. But you're not the same person who has to wake up on January 1st and go put in the work. And because you haven't done it in a long time, you're sore. And you're, oh man, I need more recovery. And you don't know what you're doing. And you don't know how you need to recover. And you don't know how much rest to have. And your training partner or whoever is supporting you doesn't show up. Or you don't adapt and you don't improve at the rate that you wish you did. And you get frustrated and you give up and you quit and you try again a year later because the version of you who agreed to do it is not the version of you that actually has to do it. Let's give it some other examples. I see my man Marcus nodding over there. Good to see you, man. I haven't seen you all day. It's been months. Good to see you. Here's another example I just thought of working at my booth today, or perhaps on my walk over here, getting those steps in. A lot of you probably are like me, over the age 45. You're at a social gathering like this. You're all energized, you're hyped up. Someone says, hey, I've got a party. Let's say it's a Halloween party, whatever it is. I've got some sort of party. You want to come? Sure, I'd love to be there. It sounds super awesome. But then you later find out the party starts at like 9 p.m. You're over 45. The version of you that shows up at that party is the version that does not show up at that party. Oh, no, you know what? I got an early morning tomorrow. I had an exhausting day today. But in the moment you wanted to go, you're having so much fun. With all kinds of fun people like me at a show like this. But then when you're asked to actually show up at a party that starts at 9 or 10 p.m., bed sounds a little more comfortable. Or runs to the Golden Girls. Something that just speaks to me. But this is something we don't think about. What do we say when you don't achieve your New Year's resolutions, your fitness goals? Okay, I suck. You don't have the discipline. You don't want it bad enough. You don't have what it takes. You're not the kind of person that achieves fitness goals. You never have before. Are those things true? Maybe. But could it be that you are just not the person you were when you signed up for it? Imagine signing up for any other sporting event or, 5K or whatever else. Sounds good at the time until you got to put in the work to do it. Same with an academic class, whatever it is. We're a different person at different times, and we can't expect the version of ourselves who has this warm feeling towards something to be the version that completes the task when we have a cold feeling toward it. And you can't necessarily be disappointed in yourself for not being able to achieve that because you're psychologically two different people. So we'll get that out of the way right now. But also, I need to give you some very important statistics that are going to blow your mind. If your mind is not blown, I have not done my job today. That's what you came here for, right? Make sure my water bottle's there. Yeah, because I might need a drink of this one. Okay, hold on. There we go. Okay, did you know? Right now, the average adult American consumes 3,540 calories per day. I hear audible responses. I see. Okay, mind blown a little bit. Okay. I grew up in the 80s, He-Man, Captain Planet, pro wrestling, all that stuff. During the 80s, we talked about a 2,000 calorie diet. Quarter century later, we've doubled it almost. We're eating 3,540 calories on average. What does it mean average? It means a lot of people are eating way more, 4,000 plus. Absolutely. People in this room, people at this festival, your neighbor. Absolutely. And some people are eating less. What does that tell us? This is not, I repeat, to body shame anyone. This is to share some very important statistics. These are facts. In fact, the numbers I bet are slightly higher now. This is from 2023, I think. Is it any surprise to you, based on what I just told you about calorie intake and the fact that we're not moving much anymore, I'll talk about that in a second, that right now, 73.6% of Americans are overweight and 42.5% are obese. Also, 1 in 2, half. It's tomorrow. Is today Sunday? Tomorrow Sunday? Go watch the 49ers play. Half the people there. Go watch the Warriors play. Half the people there. Go watch the Sharks if anybody goes there. To that arena. Sorry. They're not very good, as I understand it. Half the people there, half of them will get diabetes, cancer, heart disease, hypertension, or some other diet and lifestyle-related disease. Half. 1 in 2. Half the people you meet. I'm going to probably walk back to where I'm staying. It's 2.5 miles. Just get my steps in. Half the people I see as I walk back to where I'm staying tonight will get cancer, diabetes, heart disease, or some diet-related disease. Why is that? It's not just that on average we eat 3,540 calories. Do you know where those calories come from? Uh-oh, mine's about to get blown and more people just walked in the room. Get ready for this. The numbers may vary by slight percentages, but on the high end, as many as 85% of our calories come from processed foods, ultra-processed foods, and animal protein. Almost all of our calories. 15% come from all fruits, vegetables, legumes, grains, nuts, and seeds. Well, why does that matter? Well, for starters, look at nutrient density, nutrients per calorie, and look at health factors. There's 64 times more antioxidants in plant foods than animal-based foods. Fiber, which 97% of Americans don't get enough of, is only found in plants. Dietary cholesterol, which we need, but it's also the Achilles heel of the American diet, is only found in animal protein. But very importantly, for everybody to understand here, is the calorie density of food. Animal protein starts at about 1,000 calories per pound. For comparison, leafy green vegetables are 100 calories per pound or less, 1/10. Vegetables, cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, carrots, etc., 200 calories per pound. Fruits, my favorite, 300 calories per pound. Staples on the diet for many people in this room: potatoes, beans, lentils, rice, oats, roughly, they're all in that category, about 500 calories per pound. So it means just on a fundamental level, these staple foods, from a standard American diet to a plant-based diet, just the staple foods, tofu versus meat or whatever, is double the calorie density for animal-based foods. That's just where it starts. Then you factor in cheese and ice cream and all these other common animal-based foods, and the calories go way up from there. But there's also some plant-based foods that are very calorie-rich as well. We'll start with pressed oils. Oils or other forms of pure fat are 4,000 calories per pound. Now, I don't suspect many people in this room are just drinking pounds of oil. That's probably not the foundation. It's not like the core, the centerpiece of your meal, oil, and then you sprinkle things in there. Probably not. But if you've ever eaten at a restaurant, has anyone here eaten in a restaurant before? Okay, wow, about half. Okay, a lot of people you've never seen a restaurant before. Incredible. Unbelievable. I didn't see that coming. Obviously, everyone here has been to a restaurant. Every restaurant food, essentially, has oil in it. In fact, it has lots of oil in it, because the more oil, the tastier it tends to be, the more likely you're going to be a repeat customer. Now, we may say, I don't eat at restaurants. I'm just going to move on from the calorie density just for a quick second, so I don't forget this, because I forgot this in one of my talks on a vegan cruise recently, and I was disappointed in myself. When we talk about, who eats restaurant food? Well, as I wrote about in my Impactful Vegan book, there's a survey that suggests that 80% of Americans eat fast food once per week. That's fast food, not restaurant, diners, whatever. That's just fast food. As much oil, grease, fat, calorie density as it gets. 37% of Americans claim to eat fast food every single day. 37%. And 20% claim to eat at least one meal in their car per day, which again is kind of indicative of a fast food meal, or probably, gas station meal, or maybe not be optimal for human flourishing. So, thank you. So this is real stuff. That's why we have to talk about it. This is what our neighbors are doing. This is our family. This is what my mother's doing. This is what my friends are doing. This is how we're eating in today's society. So back to calorie density for a minute. Oil and pure fats are the highest it gets, 4,000 calories per pound. You cannot exceed that. And leafy greens, the lowest, 60 to 100 calories per pound. That's the lowest you can get. Water, of course, is nothing. But when you look at some other plant-based foods to be aware of, 2,800 calories per pound. The second highest thing I've listed so far. It's plant-based food. Anyone know what it is? Nuts and seeds, yeah. Nuts and seeds. Nut butter is probably quite similar. In fact, probably lots of oil added, maybe extra fat added, could even be higher. But what's the foundation of our diet? I already told you. For the standard American diet, which is relevant to people in this room, because every single person in this room knows someone or has a loved one who follows a standard American diet is suffering from those diet and lifestyle-related diseases. Every single person in this room, without question. Myself included, 30 years vegan, doesn't matter. My parents still eat what they want to eat, and even if it's harmful for their health. And my brother's a cattle farmer, and it doesn't matter the influence we do or don't have. The reality is that the facts speak for themselves, and the statistics are what they are for what the majority of people eat. Of that 85% I told you, 85% of our calories is processed foods and animal protein. Roughly 55% is processed food. What does that mean? That means processed food is everyone in this room. We eliminated the animal protein now. So now we're talking about all of us, those of us who do follow a plant-based diet, let's say. Still, 55% of that could come from processed or ultra-processed foods. What's wrong with that? Well, again, 2,300 calories per pound. It makes it very, very difficult to achieve your health and fitness goals, even if psychologically you are the person who attempts to achieve those goals in the first place. You get to that person that actually tries to do that. As we established for those who walked in late, you're oftentimes the person who makes the decision to pursue a goal is not the version of you that actually has to do the work to make it happen. And so this is a barrier. So now, is there any surprise? Is there any surprise at all that we don't achieve our New Year's resolutions and we have the same one for 10 years and we say, you know what, it's just not for me? The environment's not set up for that. Why? Well, 70% of all grocery store packaged food items have added sugar. Sugar's hard to overcome. It's in everything. And it's not just sugar listed on the label. It's sugar, and it's date paste, and it's brown rice syrup, and it's high fructose corn syrup, and it's this other syrup, and this other paste, and this other, type of sugar or coconut sugar. It's all sugar, sugar, sugar. And it's in everything. And furthermore, I believe as many as 73% of those packaged food items that have the added sugar mislabel it to confuse the customer, the person who's going to be consuming them, the consumer, under all these different hidden categories. So I thought this was really foundationally important to discuss right away before we get into, some of the nuances of exercise and fitness and meal plans and how to reach protein goals and all that. We first have to establish this idea that it's very, very difficult to achieve health and fitness goals in today's society. I don't have the time for it, but I wrote about it in a new book. It's one I ghost wrote for someone else, but I looked at this data of what our, again, not to body shame anyone, but what our body weight is now compared to what it was in the 1960s, 1980s, and different times throughout history, and it's changed significantly. But that's also because of food, science, technology, innovation that has changed significantly, especially in the 1980s, that made processed foods the thing that we all go for. Because they're tasty, they're convenient, they're cost-effective, and we just want more of them. If it has oil, sugar, and salt, we want as much of it as possible. Makes it very hard to achieve health and fitness goals. But I am an uplifting person. I'm here to give you good news. And so that's what I want to talk about now. So if I were to ask anybody in this room to tell me what you ate yesterday, all of it, in the quantities, the serving size, the calories, maybe some of the macronutrient, at least the macronutrient breakdown. Micronutrient I wouldn't expect you to know, but the macronutrient breakdown, the protein, carbohydrates, fats, that. It's very likely, I'm just saying, it's very likely that not a single person in the room would be able to accurately articulate that. Part of that is up here too. We forget things that we want to forget. Alcohol, caffeine, sugar, chocolate, some of that stuff that we just, I don't really want to admit that I had that. That's part of it. But many of us can't remember what we had for breakfast. It's just part of its routine. It's out of sight, out of mind. So honestly, how can you expect to have positive fitness results when you don't have a clue what you're eating? So that's what I'm here to invite you to do. What I've noticed, and I didn't really give you my background, but you heard it, I guess, during the introduction. I've been a champion runner. I ran in college. I was a pretty good long-distance runner. I was a champion soccer player. Then I got into bodybuilding. That's what I really wanted to do. I put on 100 pounds. I achieved the American dream. And I went from 120 to 220 pounds. I was on magazine, not at 220, but I was on magazine covers and, traveled around the world. I retired from bodybuilding, where I became a champion multiple times. I retired 16 years ago. So I've written like half a dozen books since then. That's kind of what I do now. But don't let the shirt fool you, the colored shirt. I'm still in pretty good shape. Watch out. Some of you saw the show and tell, my photos from the gym on Thursday. Go look on Instagram. Instagram doesn't lie. Well, okay, it always lies, but not my page. I don't even know how to filter anything, not even my mouth. I don't even know how to use a filter. So my photos are real, but I'm still in pretty good shape. But anyway, my point is, I've literally been doing this for 30 years, and I've gained 100 pounds, became the champion bodybuilder. We got really strong. Some of you saw me on the Rich Roll podcast where I talked about that 100-pound gain on a plant-based diet. I've also lost. Just recently, I just lost 25 pounds since February, just for the fun of it. Again, putting myself through these programs that I talk to people about. So I started the year at 210 pounds. I got down to 186. I'm like 190 or something right now. So I just want to give you that context. I've done this many, 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 many times. Not just on myself, but I've written books about it, including a New York Times bestseller. Like, I know this stuff pretty well from 30 years of lived experience. So what can I tell you? What I can tell you is that perhaps the most important thing you can do for your health and fitness and the longevity of that and getting to know yourself is to document everything you eat for an entire week. You can do it for longer. You're gonna learn so much about yourself that it will surprise you. I can stand up here looking all handsome and confident. Thank you. Both true, by the way. No, just kidding. Only one of those is true. And I definitely lack the confidence, but I'm working on that. He knows I got anxiety. You know I'm working on that. I'm working on it. He knows it. So I can stand here, say, I've been vegan for 30 years, right? But the last time I had a salad was back in July, because I don't like them, right? And I didn't realize that until I recorded it. You know what also I found out about myself? I was addicted. I'm lifetime drug and alcohol free, depending on how you classify this food I'm going to tell you about. I think it probably falls into the drug category. Don't test me on it. I mean, don't give me a drug test, but everyone here does it. But when I documented this stuff, which I've done many times throughout my life, there was a certain period where I was consuming something like crazy, and it had control over me, and I didn't have control over it. And wow, I'm addicted to this. Sure enough, I was. When I looked at my meal plan, my report, my food journal, you probably know what food it is or what substance it is that's coming. It was caffeine, hundreds of milligrams a day. It started innocently when I worked for a nutrition company. I got all the free energy drinks I want. I thought I liked the taste. I was doing like 6 servings a day. I liked the taste. No, I was totally reliant on caffeine. I learned that from keeping a food journal. Now I've been caffeine free since 2018. I feel like I'm at a AA meeting or something. But hi, I'm Robert. I'm caffeine free. But it's been one of the best things in my life because I have control of my own energy now. I wasn't relying on something. I lived in Phoenix, Arizona, some of you know, and I was drinking on average 39 ounces of water. You kidding me? That's like a drop. We know our bodies are 70 or 80% water. Our muscles are 78% water. I was having 39 ounces of water, and the rest was yerba mate, full of sugar and caffeine, and I was gaining weight. So these are things you discover about yourself. Or you say, I'm pretty good. I eat a pretty clean diet. I'm pretty good. And then you find out 70% of your calories are processed food. How do I know this? I'm not throwing anyone under the bus. I haven't even seen a friend or acquaintance I used to see on tour in over a decade. But I used to hang out with this friend on the East Coast that I would visit with when I toured out in those areas 10, 15 years ago. This is a tangent, but it might resonate with somebody here. And she said she followed a mostly raw food, vegan diet. Okay, fine. I've done that for a while too. But her version of that was like eating, a bunch of fruit and greens and all that, and like an entire pint of like raw ice cream and just coconut, whatever you could find. And then I started incorporating that. After that lesson, I started incorporating some of those examples into my presentations. Like, let's say I told you I eat mostly whole foods. And I eat 11 tangerines and a Philly cheesesteak. Hey, 11 out of 12, whole foods. But all the calories come from the Philly cheesesteak, right? And so ultimately, that's what we need to figure out, is where are our calories coming from? So fundamentally, one of the most important things anyone in this room can do is to keep a food journal for a week or for longer. You're going to learn so much about yourself, but your head spin. That's where you're going to discover the foods that you're addicted to, the ones that you're missing from your diet. Leafy green vegetables, we know have the most nutrients per calorie. You're not even consuming them. I wasn't either. And then beyond that, what I also implore everyone to do is to use the Harris-Benedict calculator. That's also one of the most important things I can share with you today. The Harris-Benedict calculator. What that's going to do is allow you to plug in a bunch of data, including your gender, age, height, weight, and very importantly, your activity level. As I talked about earlier, it's a big factor. And it will tell you approximately, based on all that metrics, all that data, how many calories you expend per day. That's important to know. I mean, if you're trying to lose weight, shouldn't you know how many calories you expend per day so you know how many to consume to be in a surplus or deficit? Absolutely, or it's not going to happen. Or you're just relying on willpower and hopefully you're that hardcore and dedicated you can lose 1 pound or something. Otherwise, you have to know. So use the Harris-Benedict equation or the Harris-Benedict calculator to tell you how many calories you expend per day. And then use something like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer to track your food intake for a week or so. So how does this work in the real world? Well, I told a bunch of people at my booth today when I was signing books. Here's an example for me. 2 years ago, I did another one of these fat loss challenges. I lost 27 pounds in, 4 months or something like that. That'd be pretty desirable, I'm sure, for a lot of people here. It's empowering to have that kind of control. So when I use that data, when I put in that data, Robert, 6 foot tall, 45 years old, 200 pounds, male, exercise 4 or 5 days a week, with high intensity, whatever. Depending on some of those exact numbers, my body weight at the time, it'll say, okay, Robert, you expend about 3,200 calories per day. So what does that mean? It means if I want to stay the same, let's say that 200 pound or whatever I was, 200 pound, 6 foot, blah, 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 then I'm going to eat 3,200 calories a day. If I want to bulk up, when I told you I put on 100 pounds one time, and some of that was quickly, 28 pounds in 10 months, I was eating like 5,000 calories a day. All vegan, just a lot of chewing. Like 7 energy bars a day, 5 protein drinks a day. Well, that's not really chewing. But multiple burritos per day. Yeah, it was a lot of food, but I also gained a ton of muscle and fat and built my body that way. But if I want to lose weight, I need to be in a calorie deficit. So what I did when I was eating 3,200 calories a day on average, I reduced it down to like 2,500 calories a day. That's a pretty big jump. I don't recommend a jump that big necessarily for everybody. But imagine a 700 calorie deficit each day. And that compounds. 700, then by 2 days, it's 1,400, then 2,100, 28. All of a sudden, what is it? The math here, 5 days into it, I'm in a 3,500 calorie deficit, which is equivalent to dropping a single pound, right? Because a pound is worth, 3,500 calories. So when you have that kind of mindfulness of your calorie intake versus expenditure, just simply eat in a deficit. Be mindful about your food choices. And I was just dropping weight. And I've done this, like I said, I just did it this year too. Dropped another 20 something pounds this year, doing that same approach because it works. The thing is, most of us just don't know. We don't track anything. And I understand the fatigue, tediousness, that's a word, of trying to track stuff. Not everyone wants to do that. But I absolutely recommend you do it for a while, for a week, for 2 weeks, to get to know yourself. That's how you can then set things in motion. So then it becomes second nature. You don't have to track for the rest of your life. I don't track things right now, but I became accustomed to it. When you track for a couple weeks or for a few weeks, I've tracked for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 weeks, then you know thyself. And when you know thyself, you know basically kind of what to eat in the right amounts on a consistent basis and all of that. And you just can progressively lose weight if that's the goal. You can progressively gain weight too. None of this happens overnight. Weight loss or weight gain, none of it happens overnight. It happens from consistent compounding of whatever particular action we're taking. It's how you run a marathon. You don't run a marathon today. You run down the street. Then the next day, run the street down the corner. The next day, around the corner and down the other street. And you adapt. And all of a sudden, months and months and months into it, you run a marathon. You built to that, right? Same with weight loss. Same with weight gain. So those are some of the fundamental things that I hope you'll take away from today. And that nobody's doing it. You know who is doing it? People who are having a lot of success. elite athletes, professional athletes, Olympic athletes, or your neighbor or your coworker who's been very successful with weight loss. I mean, we got someone here, Robert, lost 300 pounds, is that right? He lost 360 pounds. Stand up, Robert. I mean, this is incredible. This is incredible. Look at that. I got goosebumps. I'm dripping sweat because they've made this like 150 degrees in here. I'm just soaked, but I'm dripping sweat, but I still got goosebumps. You can see it there. Oh yeah. Yep, it's there. But yeah, Robert's an example of every day working away at it. Every day stepping forward. It comes, Rich Roll likes to say showing up. If you show up day after day, you show up with discipline, you show up with intention, you show up with desire, you show up with actions, you show up with accountability, so many things can change. And I really don't want to get off on a tangent, but I've already said it. I mean, I have no business being this New York Times bestselling author with books in 8 languages worldwide and published half a dozen books and all this stuff. But you know how I did it? Someone gave me this advice one day, and this applies to fitness too. I was trying to be a writer. Something I've wanted since I was 8 years old. I even wrote in a journal decades ago that I was going to be a best-selling author. I predicted this. I manifested this, but I wasn't making progress. I never published anything. No books. It's like back in 2009 or so. And this university president talked to me and he gave me this advice. He said, Robert, he stopped what he was doing. He just looked at me. Robert, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go home and I want you to write 2 pages every day. I don't care if it's good. I don't care if it's bad. You write 2 pages every single day and soon you've written a book. And you know what I did? I went home and I wrote, not 2 pages. That was the minimum. That was showing up. Some days I wrote 28 pages. Some days 20 pages, some days 14 pages. Just 4 months later, I finished my first book. It went on to sell 20-something thousand copies. Thank you. It's very hard to do, actually. Again, it's a little bit of a tangent, but then I wrote another book with the same approach. I didn't care if it was 1 o'clock in the morning, New York City, exhausted. I wrote. I didn't care if all my friends were hanging out in Vegas. I literally out there by the slot machines. I found a table so I could still hang out, but I wrote. And I wrote book after book after book and became one of the most prolific self-published authors in America, which landed me a major book deal with HarperCollins, the world's oldest and second largest publishing house. And now I've got a book that's in 8 languages worldwide, was an instant New York Times bestseller, instant #1 international bestseller, but it came from the same approach, just like Robert did with his weight loss of showing up every single day. And I still do it to this day. So my 2 pages a day is your 2 miles of walking a day. Or 2 anything, and it doesn't have to be 2. That's just the number I was told. Because it gives you a quantity. Like, he didn't say write for 30 minutes. Because I could write for 30 minutes and make no progress, make 1 sentence in 30 minutes if nothing comes to me. But it was complete something. It was complete 2 pages, at least. You got a book done in a few months. Do the math, right? I mean, 60 pages a month at minimum, 180 pages, the average book is 256 pages. You're done in 4 months. Fitness, the same thing. It was laughable. Like literally, I was laughed at. Barely 100 pounds and I was lifting weights and I had these aspirations of being like Captain Planet or He-Man or pro wrestler. I dang near landed a job with the WWF back then, back 20-something years ago. Not as a wrestler at first. I was part of the training staff as a sports therapist. But the idea is that we have the ability to control our outcome. And to me, that's one of the most powerful things I've ever experienced. Because a lot of us will say, why me? It won't work for me. It's my genes, my genetics, it's my family, it's my history, it's this or that. And some of those things might be true. But there's so many things that we can do. And that's what I want to really share today, or try to empower this audience to do, is to focus on the things that you can do. Like, we spend 97% of our time indoors. It means we don't exercise much anymore. We're not active. We don't get outside. We don't do stuff anymore. We're on these things. This doubles as me checking the time too. Whoa, it's already that time? I gotta wrap up soon. We're not moving. And when you combine that with a hyper concentrated diet of processed foods and and other things, animal protein, whatever, we're not an environment for success. So we are running short on time, or I am running short on time. So I want to hit a couple points that I'd be remiss if I didn't. So let's talk about protein real quick, because it's always the biggest topic. All these decades later, it's still the biggest topic. So what we have to do, and I love this quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson I just heard the other day in a podcast, where he said, we value what we think is true more than what is actually true. We value what we think is true, what we want to be true, more than what is actually true. And that absolutely applies to nutrition. We all think we got it figured out from the internet or something like that. What is actually true is that we need 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight as active individuals to repair muscle tissue and build skeletal muscle and make forward progress. And I don't want to just use this word athlete. I use active people because a lot of people don't identify as athletes. But we all want to be, and I hopefully aspire to be, active people. And for those of us who don't use kilograms, it's basically about 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. And you may think, well, that sounds kind of high. Well, again, it's what is based on science and what it reveals to be the ideal amount for muscle repair and growth, and what we need protein for: hair, skin, nails, hormone function, everything else. So what that means is, do the math based on your body weight, or ideal body weight, some people use, 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. We'll use pounds, is what we should strive for. Some people like to just round up and say 1 gram per pound. And again, some people say, well, that sounds kind of high. Well, it doesn't matter what you think or what you feel or what you think is true. That's just what the data suggests to be true for optimal for repairing skeletal muscle tissue after exercise, which hopefully we're all aspiring to do. And so we need to look at those numbers. So how do we do that? Well, it means including foods like tofu or tempeh or maybe seitan or more lentils or nuts or nut butters and all these different things in a balanced way. It could do a protein drink. I didn't even use them for more than a decade, truthfully. As many of you know, I didn't use sports supplements for over a decade, but I do occasionally now. It's not even a staple in my diet. I just do sometimes to boost it a little bit. But the idea, again, I use this word a lot today, is be mindful and thoughtful about what we're consuming. And then that's how you can prioritize protein. I want to quickly get to also, there's so many things I want to cover. This is a little bit shorter than a lot of talks I do, which are an hour. This is 45 minutes today. I talked about calorie density and that whole scale, leafy greens on one end, oil on the other, and all these foods in between. You guys already grasped that. But now we need to look at Joel Fuhrman's nutrient density. Health equals nutrients divided by calories. Basically, what's the best bang for your buck? Which foods have the most nutrients per calorie? If we're talking about optimization, or at least even just having kind of an intelligent goal, wouldn't it be a fair assumption to say, well, I should strive to get the most nutrients per calorie consumed? Eating any other way is for, obviously for enjoyment. I want to have chocolate and candy and soda and alcohol, whatever it is. I want to have all those things. But if we're eating for optimization, we could all conclude that, if you could just pick the foods that had the most nutrients per calorie, then that's the way to go. So what are those foods? Some of you know this. It's the ANDI score, the Aggregate Nutrient Density Index, Joel Fuhrman's ANDI score, ANDI, Aggregate Nutrient Density Index. It's based on about 34 different factors, important factors. Okay, how much fiber does this food have? What's the antioxidant content this has? The protein, the carbohydrate, the fat content, toxicity content of this food, cholesterol content of this food, saturated fat, all these different things, right? And when you factor it all in, I'm not even going to survey because I'm running out of time here. I'm just going to tell you, it is leafy greens like kale and mustard greens and Swiss chard, that score of 1,000. Most nutrients per calorie, and we learn they're low in calorie density. And so we just need to add more of them. You can have basically as many as you want because they're so low in calories, but very high in nutrients. They score of 1,000. Then you get foods like Brussels sprouts, and some of you suspect, that sounds like a healthy food, right? It just sounds like that food's going to be pretty high in nutrients. Brussels sprouts or flax seeds or garbanzo beans or whatever. You've got to go, if I'm not mistaken, it's in my book, it's in many books, it's free on the internet as well, on Fuhrman's website as well as elsewhere. You have to go all the way to, it's either a 37 or 38 for the highest ranking animal-based food, which is shrimp, a score of like 38. and then salmon's like 37. There's a lot of plant-based foods above them. Again, factoring in every aspect of what that food brings to the table. Trying to determine how to spend the last few minutes here. I love to tell this story about the protein package. Maybe I can do it in a really accelerated form here. One thing we have to look at is the protein package, basically what comes with it. Because we all strive for protein. It's essential. It's something our bodies can't store. Our bodies store carbohydrate, glycogen in the muscles. We store fat around organs, and we all carry fat. You can't store protein. Bless you. You got to have protein every 2 days. You store it in the body for like 2 days. So it's very, very important. We have to have lots of protein. But in this quest to consume protein, many of us, vegan or not, I usually use some non-vegan examples, but let's just keep it vegan. In our quest to consume protein, we often have it in like, let's say a vegan burger or something like that, which often comes with a cheese or a vegan cheese or oil or deep fried or butter on the bun and 2 white refined buns. And all of a sudden now we have this 1,200 calorie thing. Our goal was to get protein, and then we just ate all of this processed bun, oil, butter, mayonnaise, egg, cheese, vegan or non-vegan. You get the idea. This is very, very common. And so we need to look at like what a protein source brings to the table. Vitamin, mineral content, antioxidant content, anti-cancer properties, etc., which makes foods like tofu just so good. When it comes to supplementation, because I want to cover that quickly, protein supplements, just fine. I talked to Dr. T. Colin Campbell fairly recently about this. Absolutely no adverse effects of elevating plant-based protein. Just doesn't have those adverse health effects that whey and casein protein have. Per his China study research, creatine, one of the most well-tested, maybe the most well-tested supplement in decades. Very, very safe, helps brain health, helps muscle strength, muscle size, beneficial for men and women alike. Totally fine to have. Some things that might be lacking in a plant-based diet: DHA, EPA, essential fatty acids. It's no problem to have a supplement there. B12, of course, recommended for everyone, vegan or not. Vitamin K2, there's a few others. Selenium, again, recommended. You can either take these in like a multivitamin form from, Complement is a brand that has that. I know my wife takes that. I do occasionally. Or you can just, take them individually. Vitamin D is another one. Those on a plant-based diet could be a little bit low end. So it's important to get those numbers checked, those levels checked, and determine which ones you want to take for yourself. But those could be important and not to be overlooked. We don't just want to assume that what we're doing already works. And again, we don't want to have our confirmation bias of what we think is true be valued more than what actually is true. And so, oh man, there is so much more I like to cover. But I guess lastly here, because we didn't even talk about the fitness part, resistance weight training is the most important thing that you can do. For muscle strength, for building muscle, for bone density, for bone strength, for burning fat, building confidence, all these things, resistance weight training. That's free weights, dumbbells, barbells, machines, cable, body weight, whatever it is. Do that above anything else, above the treadmill, above the bike, above whatever. If you're able to, then I would say, not me. Again, I'm not just me saying that. It's science, data, evidence says resistance weight training is the best thing we can do for our bodies, including for longevity. It's all these, Blue Zones people are doing very similar things, walking uphill and body weight exercises and moving a ton and all of that. They're using their bodies. And I would also say one of the greatest things I've incorporated into my life in recent years is walking. I mean, I'm going to be at 30,000 steps today when it's all said and done. I was 27,000 steps yesterday, not just walking around San Francisco, but I was 30,000 steps 2 days before that at home. And it doesn't have to be hard. I mean, look how many I've walked just during this talk. Up to 13,000. I was only at 6,000 at my booth earlier. So, I covered a lot of ground here. But you can do it anywhere. Just walk, dog walk when you're on a phone meeting. Just walk for the fun of it. Walk for the health of it. All of that. Just move. And very, very lastly, because I want to respect the time, and I'm essentially out of it, perhaps 30 seconds over it. I say this in all of my talks, and perhaps it's apropos to how I started today's presentation about New Year's resolutions coming up around the corner, which don't have to start January 1st. They can start today. They can start tomorrow morning. They can start whenever you want. and thinking about what you want to be able to do with health and fitness and what it means to you to be able to achieve things you've always wanted to achieve, like Robert and like so many others have found a way to make it happen. I want to leave you with this quote that I've said for over a decade in talks all over the world. And it's a quote from H. Jackson Brown Jr., who said, 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the things that you did do. And what he's saying is that whether it's 20 years from now or 2 years from now, you don't want to be asking what might have been. Like, man, I was fired up at the moment. I was inspired in the moment, but I didn't do anything with it. I never applied myself. I always wanted to do this. I always wanted to be a runner or a swimmer or a bodybuilder or to lose weight or feel confident in myself. But I never took that first step because someone maybe I trusted or I loved said I wasn't good enough or that it wasn't for me or I couldn't believe in myself. Or I looked at all this comparison stuff on social media and realized everyone else is better than me and I'm never going to be like them. Whatever it is that gets in your way, I encourage you to push it out of the way so that 20 years from now or 2 years from now, you're not asking what might have been and you're not living with regret knowing that you had an opportunity to start something today, right now. Whatever is important to you in health and fitness, it can begin at this moment. The moment you walk out of this room today, you can say, this is what I'm going to do and this is why. And I'm going to track it, I'm going to document it, and I'm going to be a success story, and I'm going to tell others about it, and I'm going to help my friends, family, loved ones, and we're going to do this together and uplift everyone together. I want to thank you so much for your time today. Thank you.